Buff Nation.
Let's go.
Man, it has been a wild first couple days of the offseason. I mean, right after the Buffs and Utah face off in Salt Lake City, drama has just unfolded. We are presented by Illegal Pete's, everyone's go-to spot for burritos, buddies, and beers. RK, how are you doing with all this, man?
I am not exaggerating at all, Jake, when I say I have not shed one bead of sweat over any of this. I mean, we're in a little bit of a unique position where we kind of know what's happening and what's coming. So there's not as much shock factor on all of this. But even when I heard some of this stuff for the first time, it's just like, okay, like I can't thank that weird podcast enough for coming up with "Don't Break a Sweat on the Escalator," because I've just applied that to everything in my life, and it creates for a very peaceful existence.
I feel that, man. Look, Corey Phillips put out a tweet today basically saying trust the process, and Coach Prime said after the game on Saturday,
Well, I think
he knows what's going to come.
I think it's important to point out exactly what he said, which is not trust the process, but this is all a part of the plan, which is a stronger statement, meaning almost like this is what we wanted, not as much as, hey, we're going to roll with the punches.
Right. So I guess we start with Antwann Hill. He committed right after the Stanford game. I think he visited for that game as well. One of the top recruits in the 2025 class. It came out that he was scheduled or was trying to reclassify to the 24 class to go play with Shedeur and enroll basically in a few weeks. But then it comes out that that's not going to be the case. He actually wants to reopen his recruitment and kind of go through the whole process. He doesn't want to rush finishing his high school career. He wants to go be recruited by other schools. So he ends up decommitting.
Yeah. And you kind of outlined why this is happening right there. Like, he committed a long time before he was ever going to sign a NLI, National Letter of Intent, and had the idea in his head that he was going to have a chance to make it to Colorado in January. It doesn't sound like that possibility came to fruition. So it kind of makes sense for him to say, okay, well, now I'm going to play my senior year. I'm going to see what else happens. I'm going to see what happens at Colorado. Like, I have time to process this decision and make sure this is what I actually want to do, rather than trying to rush the decision and try to get to Colorado as soon as possible, which I personally think would have been the best thing for him. But that doesn't mean, who knows what happened. Maybe it was he wasn't able to get enough credits to graduate, or maybe, the football became more of a priority and whatever. These things happen. And I think the important thing to remember with Antwann Hill and Winston Watkins is this is not the end. This is not the end. There's a lot of time left in the recruitments of those two young men to where Colorado, if they want, will still have a chance to pursue them.
And it sounds like Colorado's in the mix for both of them still. It's just that they wanted to basically still be recruited by other schools. I think, we're not the only ones, but with the Antwann Hill news, I think your mind just naturally drifts to Bryce Underwood. When you see him or Antwann Hill decommitting, Bryce Underwood put CU in his top 7 just a few weeks ago. He obviously already came on a visit during the game, and he was hanging around Shedeur the whole time. We don't really know at this point, but what things to come for maybe Bryce Underwood coming in?
I don't know. If you want Bryce Underwood to come to Colorado, I suggest donating to the 5430 Foundation, if you catch my drift. That one is going to be tough. And honestly, jokes aside, I suggest donating to the 5430 Foundation regardless, because all of these guys, money plays a factor. And with Antwann Hill, it's no different. So, there's another decommit coming down the pike sooner or later where money is the issue. And I wouldn't necessarily say the one that's coming up is because Colorado can't afford them, but you heard Coach Prime say it the other day. They're not going to be held hostage by players when it comes to NIL money. That was, there's meaning behind that. So yeah, I mean, Colorado, Coach Prime said it the other day. I was glad he did. They need more resources when it comes to NIL to be able to get the top players in the country. And that's going to play a factor, especially at the quarterback position, which is the most expensive position in football, regardless of what level you're at.
Yeah, man, no doubt. I think Bryce Underwood is scheduled to commit around Christmas. So he wants to make a decision. He was just at Michigan this last weekend for their win over Ohio State. And obviously there's a lot of schools that want to get him on campus. The next guy, though, Danny O'Neal. He committed to Colorado, I think, back in March. And, when I think we had Adam Munstertiger on the show shortly after that happened, he talked about how he was such a scheme fit for what Sean Lewis wants to do on offense. And, well, it kind of looks like the writing is on the wall of things that we have talked about and have known have been coming for a while.
Yeah, and I fully expect, we haven't said this in such words, but I fully expect Sean Lewis to no longer be the offensive coordinator, and I expect that news to come out pretty shortly. And this one is a direct, that's a direct, drawing a line from one dot to another. That one's as obvious as it gets. It's, he was his primary recruiter. He loved his fit in his offense. I also loved his fit in his offense. And, I wouldn't be surprised if he flips to wherever Sean Lewis ends up next. And Sean Lewis will have a job pretty quickly. It didn't work out here for a myriad of reasons. But he's still young. He's still a good offensive mind. And I think, he'll get a job pretty quickly. And I wouldn't be surprised if Danny O'Neal follows him to where that is.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he's from, I think, Indiana. We know Sean Lewis has those ties to the Midwest. It's obviously where he coached for a long time at Kent State. So not a big surprise. I mean, I guess the next guy we would have to talk about would be Aaron Butler because, he takes CU Buffs football out of his IG. A lot of people have been saying, he's going to flip at some point too. It's just been a lot, I think. I think a lot of people are freaking out because they see all these decommitments. But, as Corey Phillips said, as Coach Prime said, I mean, they're going to have multiple opportunities to get not just recruits, but portal kids, guys that are ready to play now as opposed to, pieces to develop.
Yeah, and here's the truth of it, is the bad news is going to come before the good news. And it's going to create an environment where a lot of people can panic. You've already seen that happening today. And more than that, it's going to give the haters a whole lot of fodder. And what can you do? There's nothing you can really say. If you want to, I saw Bucky posted, stop going back and forth with these people. We lost 8 games. They're going to talk their shit. You just got to let them and trust the process. I kind of agree with that. The bad news is going to come. Everyone's going to be really loud. And then Colorado's going to get some big commitments in the next week or so. And everyone's going to be really quiet. And then a bunch of guys are going to transfer. And everyone's going to get really loud. And then a bunch of guys are going to transfer in. And everyone's going to be really quiet. But if you're a Colorado fan, just know, the bad news is coming first. It's going to be decommitments, which we've already seen. It's going to be coaches getting fired or whatever words they want to use to, protect their image. And I mean that from both sides. It's going to be players transferring. Those are the first 3 steps. And you might get something mixed in there of a player who commits soon. But in the end, there's going to be all the bad news at the beginning of the offseason. And then you're going to get ready for the good news coming right after it.
Yep, it's just that silly season of college football. Coaches are being hired, fired. Guys are going to be committing, decommitting, and then the portal opens on December 4th. So it's going to get pretty crazy. Shout out to our friends at Factor. We're big fans of Factor here at DNVR. One of the best meal kits because, you don't really have to do anything. It's all prepared there for you, ready to eat. Just pop it in the microwave. They're delicious, healthy meals, great portions. This November, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. It is the holiday season, so to make things a little bit easier on yourself, check out Factor. You're a big fan of Factor too, right, Ryan?
Love Factor. Aside from like the health benefits or the dieting benefits, it's just good food that you have packaged and ready to go for you in your fridge. And I know everyone needs that. Like, we'd all like to believe that we have time to cook all of our meals and make them healthy. It's just not true. So just having a nice, like, it's in the shape of a TV dinner, but it's fresh. You don't freeze it, and it's delicious.
Yeah, it makes eating lunch at the office real easy. You guys can head to factormeals.com/DNVR Buffs 50 and use that code DNVR Buffs 50 to get 50% off. Again, that's code DNVR Buffs 50 at factormeals.com/DNVR Buffs 50 to get 50% off. Shout out to Factor, and also shout out to our friends at Game Time. Football season's over, but Buffs basketball is still going strong. Whatever city you're in, whatever event's going on, there's hockey games, NFL, all kinds of good stuff. But Game Time is great also for concerts, events, whatever's going on in your city. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code BUFFS, BUFFS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account or redeem code BUFFS, BUFFS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, the next thing we have that came out on Well Off, I believe last night, was Shedeur's injury. We found out what it was. He's got a fracture in his back, which, I mean, not really surprising, but man, it's just sad to hear that.
Yeah, and I was trying to tell people for the last few weeks, like, that he was serious. He was actually hurt, not just like banged up. And it's funny because we had, I think it was in the Arizona game. Was it the Arizona game where we had all the 3rd and 4th and 1s that we couldn't convert?
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
I think it was. And someone was like, why don't they just do the tush push? Why don't they just do the tush push? And I'm like, they can't with the way their quarterback is right now. And it sucks, man. And this is just like part of the story of football. One of the biggest keys to having success throughout the entire season is keeping your players healthy. And some of it is luck. And obviously some of it has to do with the fact that he was getting hit so much. I think, unfortunately, this one was less about luck and more about them not being able to protect him. He just got hit so many times. It's like a law of averages thing, right? Like, you get hit that many times by 250 to 300 pound dudes, you're going to end up being hurt. And that's what happened here. Shedeur is an absolute warrior for playing through that as much as he did, because that, he's been banged up for a while now. So I think they made the right decision protecting him on Saturday. He's going to have to go through a recovery process here, and I'm glad he finally has the time to do so. And next year, as Coach Prime said, they know what they need for him, and they're going to get it. And I'll be damned if I don't believe him.
Yeah, man, pretty much the same thoughts. I mean, it was pretty evident after he was ruled out against Washington or Utah on Saturday that this was something pretty serious. I think that if Shedeur was able to play, he definitely would have, but obviously you don't want to risk it at that point, just given where the season is. And look, man, I know he kind of walks gingerly and does, looks like he's hurt, I think, a little bit more than he actually is sometimes. But this guy's just been absolutely getting killed. Brian Howell tweeted out, I think this is the most that a quarterback has ever been sacked at CU. So there's a lot in this that is, I don't know, kind of inevitable almost. When you get hit that much, you're just going to get hurt.
Yep, exactly. And that's what I mean. And I think we're honestly like a fractured back is no joke. But it is a shorter recovery than, other injuries that are common in football. And so there's almost a little bit of like, it could have been worse. Like they might be fortunate that it wasn't an ACL or any of that sort of stuff. Because, this is one where you can rest and get back to yourself, short in a shorter period of time than some of the other more common football injuries.
Right, and he's obviously like walking around and stuff. Like it's a fracture, I'm sure. Like they're not going to lie about that, but it's probably not like anything that we really need to worry about long term. Like I think it's just kind of a rest and relaxation thing, and Shedeur will be fine. But yeah, as you said, I mean, it could have been a lot worse. But man, I just feel bad for the guy, man. He got hit a ton. The offensive line did look better on Saturday. Felt like Staub actually wasn't under too much pressure. I think it was after CU's second drive, they were up 2 sacks, and he wasn't touched really the rest of the game. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at the portal entries that have been going on right now, there's like a Memphis offensive lineman. Like, they're joining the portal. They're going to get picked up pretty quick, whether it's Colorado or someone else.
Exactly. And there are going to be plenty of people who want to come play for Coach Prime. Plenty. And people who want to protect Shedeur. Like, that is a attractive job because Shedeur is going to put up Heisman caliber stats next year. And if you're one of his offensive linemen, like you're going to get all eyes on you. Maybe more, it already happened this year, more eyes than anyone in the country. And Coach Prime always says it, right? It exposes the shine. It also exposes the blemishes. If you're for real about wanting to play in the NFL and you believe you have what it takes, you can go and play for Colorado next season, and you're going to have as much, if not the most eyes on you of anyone in the country.
Yeah, man, no doubt. All right. Do you have anything else on Shedeur's injury?
Nope. Just, I'm glad he won the Buffalo Heart Award because it's a very, very fitting award for him.
Yeah, no doubt, man. All right, we'll get to some moves that have been happening. I guess to kind of foreshadow that, I mean, we've talked about Talon Chandler, I think, last week when he decommitted, and we just talked about Sean Lewis in the last segment. But our guy Matt H has been, doing his homework on Twitter, and there's some guys I think that have, I don't want to say emerged as candidates, but there's some names to look out for. Someone who coached at IMG, obviously, and that's where Jordan Seaton played. So. Mm-hmm. I just have complete faith that Coach Prime is going to find an offensive line coach, someone who can actually bring in talent. Because I think that was a problem with Bill O'Boyle as well. Is you saw the talent wasn't really up to par that was coming in, especially in the transfer portal this offseason. It was a lot of JUCO, a lot of lower division guys, and we thought they could hopefully make the jump to perform at this level, but it was just obvious that there's just a talent issue on the offensive line, and that hurt the run game. It hurt Shedeur. Like, it hurt a lot of things this season.
I think it's really important to understand, and first of all, shout out to everyone who's watching. Great point from Love there. Also, hit the thumbs up if you could and you're enjoying the show. I think it's important to note, Jake, that at this point last season, Coach Prime wasn't even the coach of Colorado. And let's not act like he gets hired officially, what was it, December 4th?
December 3rd or 4th. I can't remember which one exactly.
Let's not act like you just get that job and you just walk in and you're just like, okay, we need offensive line. Let's go get it. Like, there's such a transition process that comes. You have to move your whole family. You're in the process of like figuring out Shedeur's transfer stuff. You're figuring out what's going to happen with Shiloh. You don't even know the roster. You haven't watched a lick of film on it. You have to figure out the roster. You have to find out what you need. And Coach Prime, I know a lot of people want to act like he just came in and told everyone to leave. That's not actually what happened at all. He gave a lot of guys an opportunity to come in and spring ball and show what they had and get evaluated then. And even then, there was a lot of like, hey, look, there's not going to be an opportunity for you here. And then those guys transferred. So they were so far behind the 8 ball when it came to repairing and fixing this offensive line compared to where they are now, which is like, they know exactly what they need. They know exactly what they want. They know more than anyone in terms of who's going to be available. You're crazy if you think that like Deion Sanders is going to find out who's hitting the transfer portal when they actually hit the transfer portal. Like, these guys are laying down a foundation before they hit the transfer portal. They're out there on college football Tinder, swiping right on teams and hopping in their DMs and saying, hey, if I hit the transfer portal, would you guys be interested? And so like all of that stuff is going on. It's very different from last year where they just kind of had to try and scrape something together based off of what they knew, who was out there and what they could go get in a short period of time.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, another aspect of this is Tyler Brown's basically back now. Like the
Yep.
season's over, he can get back on the field and get back into his starting role. I mean, that was a loss. I don't think one player would have fixed this offensive line this season, but we know the guards were the weak point on the offensive line this year, and that was probably a big hurt to them. And also, just kind of what you said about the difference between last year and this year, like Coach Prime was hired a little later in the process for sure, and that played a role. But I also think a lot of guys were a little hesitant just of how everything was going to look and work out. And now that there's more of a clear direction and clear needs with this team, I think they'll have a much easier time recruiting those big guys in both sides of the trenches, really.
Also, it is not tampering if players reach out to coaches. Players who are on teams can reach out. It just can't go the other way around.
There you go. All right. Do you want to tell the people about Hero Bread?
Amazing. I mean, do you want low to no carb bread that tastes like normal bread? I bet you probably do. And if you do, Hero Bread is the place to go. But really, the star of the show, in my opinion, everyone has their own favorite Hero Bread product. The star of the show for me is the tortillas. Because one thing that you can make really well low carb is green chili. But then to properly eat green chili the Colorado way, you want to dip a tortilla in it. And that's just something you can't do if you're on a low carb diet until Hero Bread came up with tortillas that somehow taste exactly like regular tortillas while being low carb. So hit up our friends over at Hero Bread. Get in on their bread if that's what your fancy is, or get in on their tortillas, which are absolutely elite.
Yeah, Hero Bread just makes it easier to cut carbs out of your diet. And right now, Hero Bread is offering the DNVR fam 10% off their first order. Just go to hero.co and use our code DNVR to save on Hero Bread today. That's HERO.co to save 10% today. And then our great friends at Circa, you're heading back there at the end of next month or at the end of the NFL season to watch the Broncos take on the Raiders. And you guys can head out there and just check out how awesome of a place it is. Stadium Swim is pretty amazing. And they've got one of the coolest, biggest sports books that I've ever seen. The rooms are all amazing as well, 500 plus rooms, all amazing in terms of their decor. And heading out to Vegas for Broncos Raiders, Avs Knights, Pac-12 or Mountain West alum. Book your stay with code DNVR20 for 20% off. There's a chance we might be back out there for the Pac-12 tournament, the final Pac-12 tournament of all time.
Yep. And the Super Bowl.
And the Super Bowl. Man, it's sad. Pac-12 After Dark is like dead now. A lot of weird stuff going on in college football. Anyways, you can also check out Circa Sports sportsbook app. Download the app at circasports.com. Circa Sports bets can only be made while physically located in the state of Colorado. Must be 21 or older. All rights reserved. Circa Sports Colorado encourages you to gamble responsibly. If you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER or visit problemgamblingcolorado.org. All right, it doesn't stop, Ryan. Yesterday, tight ends coach Tim Brewster tweeted out that he had resigned. Probably the first move in many moves we're going to see on this coaching staff. But just a guy, I think, that brought a lot of passion, a lot of excitement to this program. I go back to our time talking to him at the TCU pregame show when we were at the hotel there, and just his insights to what was going to happen that ensuing day on the field and just what he's seen that whole camp season. He was the one who was demoted after Pat Shurmur had to be brought up to co-OC after all this Sean Lewis stuff happened earlier in the season. So this seemed also kind of inevitable. But the first coaching move is Tim Brewster moving on.
Yeah. Bittersweet for sure. Because Tim Brewster was an elite energy guy. And to be honest, I think that immediately becomes a role on the staff that needs to be replaced. You just need one of those guys who's going to walk up and down and hype up every single player before the game. You know what I mean? Like we saw it on Neely's channel every single week. You need that guy who's going to give that rah-rah speech. That's, a little more rah-rah than what Coach Prime normally delivers. Those guys are valuable. I remember, back in the day, that's what Eric Bieniemy was on those early 2000s teams. Like before a big kickoff and like right before a big series, like it wouldn't be the special teams coach. It's Eric Bieniemy running down there into the middle of the kickoff team, like pushing them around and hyping them up. Like you just need that. So I thought that was, he did a great job of playing that role. On the other side, there's a lot that goes into these things. And also the recruiting at his position wasn't what you would have expected from Tim Brewster. Like you kind of thought, okay, he's coming in, he's a big recruiter. Like they got Zico, and when that didn't work out, there was nothing else to fall back on behind it, and there wasn't any tight ends yet that had committed in this next class. So that was the disappointing part of Tim Brewster's tenure here.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, he got some visits to come in, I think, earlier in the season, but obviously never really got that big commitment. And then the whole Zico situation. He did a great job with Michael Harrison, though. I think you got to kind of tip your cap to him in terms of just developing him into a serviceable tight end, someone who could really become a security blanket for Shedeur, especially early in the season. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough one just because of the energy and the passion he brought to the program, but they need some tight end presence. They need multiple tight ends, actually. And that was another one of the reasons why I think protecting was so hard for Shedeur this year. Like, it was basically just the 5 guys up front, and then you threw Harrison in there and you just hoped that he could get in the way for at least a few seconds because they didn't really have any forces, any guys who could really act as like a 6 offensive lineman or just give them an edge in the run game. And it really, I think, hurt the offense.
It did. It absolutely did. And I think he was hamstrung a little bit with what was there on the roster and what they were able to get in the transfer portal. I think Zico was supposed to be that guy, and Zico didn't buy into Coach Brew's style of coaching. And that's unfortunate because, as people are saying in the comments, like everyone likes Coach Brew, but for whatever reason, it didn't click for those two. And I remember, it's been brought up before, but like I asked Coach Brew about Zico in the first press conference that we talked to him, or second press conference that we talked to him, and he was incredibly hard on him, incredibly critical of Zico. And it was at that point that we knew like something was kind of up. And once that didn't work out, there was nothing for them to fall back on. They ended up having to convert Mikey, and I thought he did a great job converting Mikey. But Mikey was not a real answer as much as he was a Band-Aid. So a bummer at that position, and I think it affected the team. As for who could come in and fill that position, I don't know what they're going to look at yet for that yet, but I would love if we could somehow bring John Embry back. He's been doing a great job in the NFL, so I don't know if that's going to happen. But maybe he's homesick. John Embry's from Colorado, obviously was the head coach of Colorado. People were very, everyone knows it didn't go well for him as the head coach here, but he is truly, truly, truly an elite tight ends coach. If you go back and look at his history, and he was also a great recruiter during his time in college football, especially as a position coach. So I don't know if it could happen. He's working for another Colorado guy there in Miami, and Mike McDaniel. He went to Cherry Creek High School. But if you could get John Embry to come back and coach tight ends, it would be incredible.
Just to go back to what we saw on the field this year, I mean, I remember asking Sean Lewis back early in the season, the importance of the tight end role in this offense. He said it was critical. Before this season, he hadn't had a tight end get more than 10 receptions in that offense. Michael Harrison goes out and gets 31. So, I think Coach Bruce should be commended a lot for what he did with Michael Harrison. It's just, I don't know. The scheme, I think, was a little off just in terms of the talent they had as well. Obviously, the offensive line was bad. It was just, I think, a bad mixture when you look at the end of the day, and they couldn't really get that top-of-the-line guy because, look, with Zico, he was basically what Michael Harrison was asked to do. He was a smaller tight end, basically asked to be like a field stretcher, someone who could just work the middle of the field, work in between zones, and that's what Michael Harrison did really well. They just don't have a physical presence, and I think that's something that Coach Prime and this team should really look for when it comes to the portal this offseason as well.
Yeah, I think I'm a little disappointed in the way it went with Zico, because I think if Zico could have just pretended like he cared and like just faked it with the coaching style and like pretended like he really wanted to be an all-purpose tight end who can block well and all this stuff, it could have been him with all those touchdowns, and likely more. He was more athletic, faster than Mikey was. But this coaching staff, and it starts at the top with Coach Prime, isn't going to baby you or coddle you if you're not buying into what they're trying to teach.
Yep. It just sucks for Zico too, because he ended up transferring to Mississippi State. Obviously, they're going through a coaching change. He wasn't allowed to play because he couldn't get a waiver for all the transfer stuff. So, I mean, it's tough. It was just a mess, I think, at tight end. Really, just on the front line of the offense this year. And while I was a big fan of Coach Brew, I think these are some changes that had to be made just to get to the offense to where it needs to be, just to be sustainable from here on out. I guess it worked earlier in the year, of course, but obviously those issues with depth tended to pop up, and that's why I think we had issues protecting Shedeur and working the middle of the field. So, anything else on Coach Brew?
No, just people need to understand how much more goes into this. In the same way that you would talk about a team, or even in a micro level, an offensive line needing to mesh, right? We'll say they need chemistry. They need to all work together. All of that stuff that you would say about a team also applies to a coaching staff. And that I just think is important to note whenever you see these moves being made, not specifically this one, but as moves continue to be made throughout this offseason, know that it's not always just about being directly coaching players. It's about being part of a team.
For sure, man. All right. It's been an interesting few days. A lot of, I guess, negative things have happened, but we do have some actual recruiting news. 2 4-stars are coming to visit this Friday, the 1st of December. The first one being Nick Marsh. We talked about this guy a little bit earlier in the season. He was scheduled to come. I can't remember which game it was. Might have been Stanford. I think it was around that time. But he's still committed to Michigan State. He obviously has interest in Colorado. He will be here. He is the 118th overall player in the class, 19th overall wide receiver, 6'3", 200 from Michigan. They already have Brandon Davis Swain, a 4-star defensive lineman who's from Michigan. So a little interesting, I think, that a lot of Midwest kids have decommitted, but then the Michigan guys are staying for whatever reason. So, or at least retaining interest. And then, of course, King Joseph Edwards, the 335th overall player, the 28th overall edge in this upcoming 2024 class, 6'4", 230. He's out of Georgia. The Buffs had great success recruiting out of Georgia. I think a lot of that is due to Nick Williams, Corey Phillips, all these SEC connections they have down there. King Joseph Edwards has been – he's got 6 crystal balls or on-3 predictions to hear. It seems almost inevitable, but we got some big visits.
Yep, there you go. It's beginning, and you're going to see big names coming to Colorado. What's going to feel like every weekend between now and next season, and then I guess they're going to keep coming after that too. But remember that Colorado is highly, highly interested in going quality over quantity when it comes to this recruiting class. So you're not longtime Colorado fans are going to be used to see you filling out their recruiting class. You're trying to get 25 players, and you're going to have 3 or 4 headliners, 10 to 15 high-level 3-stars, and then a bunch of fillers that are just you're taking a flyer on a guy who you like his size and strength. Maybe he's unrated. Maybe he's a low-rated 3-star, and that's just not what Coach Prime is going to do. He's going to take, I don't know, 5 to 10. What are they at right now? How many players committed with the 2 decommits? I guess just one for this
9.
class. Yeah, so I was going to say, okay, 9. So I'll say 10 to 15 players that they really, really like. And they're not going to fill it out with a bunch of filler after that. So just remember that, especially when it comes to recruiting rankings. Look at average star rating. It'll be much more indicative of what this staff, the level this staff is recruiting at when it comes to high school. And then also just know that they're still going to lean on the transfer portal. I think if Coach Prime was going to be here for, let's just say, 7 years, which I don't necessarily expect, But if it were to happen, eventually he's going to get to a spot where he doesn't want to rely on the transfer portal. But what did he say to me when I asked what percentage of the additions this offseason are going to come through the transfer portal? He said a plethora, because we want to win now. When it comes to turning around in college football, the fastest way to do it is through the transfer portal. There are also some things about it that aren't sustainable and that are pros and cons. But in the end, high school recruiting is about winning later. Transfer portal recruiting is about winning now. And you'd like to be in a position where your roster is set to win now, so you can just worry about winning later. But they're not. And obviously they had to flip the whole thing over last offseason. They're going to have to flip a portion of it over this season to try to get to a point where they can compete at the highest level next year.
For sure. Just as you said with the average recruit ranking, I think the Buffs, they're at 89.94. I think that's still top in the Big 12, the new Big 12 in terms of average recruit. It's just the numbers, like you said. Like, they're only going to have so many guys. And look, we might see some more decommitments coming down the line too, but they're in the mix with a lot of guys who are very high profile, guys who have visited early in the year. And just from what we learned last offseason, like, we're just going to get flips out of nowhere. Like, all of a sudden we're just going to wake up, oh, this like 4-star like defensive lineman just flipped here from, I don't know, Florida or whatever. Like, yeah, that's part of the Coach Prime, I think, recruiting magic, is that it's not all going to be out in front of you, like right there. You can't really see the progress, but the results do come in. They're going to get these flips. They're going to get these high-profile guys. And just the way it looks right now, they have a high average recruiting ranking. Like, these should be guys who could come in, hopefully contribute this year. If not, be building blocks for the future.
Yep. Great point.
The Buffs are ranked 65th overall right now as it currently stands. They do have 4 5-stars. They're right there with Cal, Oregon State, and man, I kind of feel bad. Where's our guys Connor and Clint? Because that is, if we've had a rough few days, they've had it worse.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call what we've had a rough few days compared to them. They cannot say don't break a sweat on the escalator. Just put it that way. They're more like an elevator that has lost its belt and is free falling to the ground. Unfortunately, no hate towards them or Oregon State, but it's a complete and utter mess for them. They lost their coach, they lost their conference, and from a Colorado standpoint, I would say we are simply trying. We should be trying to go and get that offensive line. Like, they had a big, mean, nasty offensive line at Oregon State, and I have to assume most, if not all of them, will be hitting the portal, and they'll have a unique situation where it'll be easy for them to transfer because of everything that's happening there. So for Colorado, they could even look at the running back. I think his name was Martinez. Oregon State should be ripe for the picking. Washington State has some desirable players too. So sucks for them. Hopefully better for us. Looks like we lost Jake. I like that background though. The little shimmering gold background is fire. Yeah, it does. We can hit some questions while we wait for Jake. All right, from MLN, do we need to worry about Shedeur playing next year? Back fracture, question mark, exclamation point. No, I don't think so, not at all. Obviously, that's a very... Back fracture could mean a lot of things, and at the worst, it could be very, very bad. But we'll learn more, I assume, eventually. But I do not think that this is something that is going to affect Shedeur next season or even his off season this year, except for the very beginning of it here. Next one from Bama Boy. A number of Power 5 O-line transfers are entering the portal. What do you make of that? O-line starters are entering the portal. What do you make of that? I make that I've been saying that all season, that starters from Power 5 schools are going to hit the portal, and more specifically, starters from Power 5 schools are going to transfer to Colorado. It's only a matter of time before that happens, and I fully expect it. I'm not surprised at all. The transfer portal it is going to be crazier this year than it has ever been, because a lot of guys are just realizing like they have a chance to go do something new, try something new, go experience a new area of the country, go play for a better team sometimes, go play for more playing time. Like it has become, the transfer portal has become the conversation in college football all around the country. And you're going to see starters at every position just going to new places, whether it's a wide receiver who wants to go to a new place because their quarterback graduated and they don't think the next guy behind them is good. Like I mentioned, offensive line because they don't like the scheme or there's a coaching change. The portal will have more players in it this year than ever before. And honestly, that number's only going to keep growing until the NCAA changes something about it. And I'm not saying they're necessarily going to, but on top of everything I just said, there's a huge amount of money out there for you. And you're going to see guys enter the transfer portal and leave the transfer portal because what are they doing? They're increasing their value. And so they're going to say, hey, I'm transferring. You can recruit me out of the portal just like everyone else, but there's going to be a dollar amount attached to it. And whether you like it or not, this is what college football is now. It is pay for play. Like if you want to get a guy out of the transfer portal, there's going to be a cost on him. And so when starting offensive linemen at Power 5 schools here, the going rate for a starting offensive lineman in the portal is going to start at like $300,000. How would that not catch your eyes? Like you can go from Memphis to Colorado and make a bunch of money, or you can stay where you are and not make any money, or make a small amount that you were promised when you got there. Like the portal and the money associated with it is going to be insane. I hope some investigative reporter can give us a ballpark number on the amount of money that is going to change hands when it comes to the transfer portal this year, because it's going to be insane. And it's why NIL is such an important part of this. Like Coach Prime actually can work miracles when it comes to recruiting, but he cannot do it all alone. It's why, and every coach in the country is saying this. I forget who it was, but I think it was I think it was South Carolina's coach said something along the lines of like, we need 5,000 fans to donate $1,000 each, and then we can start getting the players that you guys want and you guys think we need to compete. Like it's all about money at this point. And the transfer portal for the kids is like, enter the transfer portal and get money. Like who's not going to do that at 18 years old? Do we have any communication from Jake?
No, I was like, I'm gonna message him.
Did he, like, his computer died? Yeah, that would be probably the most likely thing if we haven't heard from him. Or he's just talking right now. He's just been talking the whole time, has no idea that he's off the show. All right, next one from S. McDade. The transfer portal will be insane, and the commitment and decommitments, ugh. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a wild ride. Just got to hang on tight, and if you believe in Coach Prime, then you won't sweat it. If you don't, well, you'll probably be wrong in the end. Okay, from 5280, Ivan. Jake is trying to work on his internet connection. Any coach on the defense gone from this staff? Not hearing any rumblings regarding defensive coaches. Not sure. I wouldn't expect it, though. I think that the defense, they're more concerned about adding talent than changing coaches. But that doesn't mean it won't happen. Next question. From Roadblock 85, where did the Byron Leftwich rumors come from? Is that a real possibility? Well, Byron was around the team a lot this season, and was seen posting pictures with the recruits, was seen talking to Shedeur. Like, there's clearly a relationship there, and obviously that's what he does. He was an offensive coordinator. Then on top of that, you have the fact that he coached Tom Brady to his single best statistical season. And Tom Brady and Shedeur Sanders have a very close relationship, almost like a mentor-mentee relationship. So I would assume that Leftwich comes at the highest recommendation of Tom Brady, and you start adding all of that stuff together, it could be a really, really great match for the Buffs. We'll see if that's where they end up going, but I would say to the question of is it a real possibility, it is a very, very real possibility. Super chat from Robert. Thank you so much for the super chat. Hit the thumbs up if you guys respect me finishing this show out without Jake. The Sean Lewis offense is only maximized with a true RPO QB. KSU QBs average 400 to 700 yards per year. CU needs a pro-style offense. I actually agree with your first part, and I actually think that Shedeur could have done that. The problem is that it was way too much of a risk in terms of putting Shedeur out on the move more than you had to. Like he was getting hit so much in the backfield that designing plays that essentially are designed to get him hit. I realize they're also designed to get yards, but you design them and make him a runner, and you expose him to more hits. You couldn't do that. So there was a little bit of the offense that had to be put away because you didn't want to run Shedeur. I think Shedeur is absolutely athletic enough to do that, but it wasn't smart to run way too much RPO. But I do think you're right. The Sean Lewis offense was a little bit hamstrung by the fact that they had to prioritize keeping Shedeur healthy. As for the second part of your comment, CU needs a pro-style offense. I disagree with that. Pro-style, I don't even know what that means anymore because even the NFL is running RPOs, a lot of spread, a lot of shotgun. The best offenses in the NFL are running more what used to be called college-style offenses. So CU still needs and is going to, in my opinion, run spread, air it out more often than they run the ball, not be under center as much as you would ever see in old school pro style offenses. But I do agree that you need an offense that doesn't rely on the quarterback running. What's up, Jake?
What's up? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Sorry about that, guys.
That fan behind
you
you is a little bit distracting.
Okay. 2 seconds. There's a lot going on right now. Sorry.
Did you just do a full 360?
No.
Okay.
Why?
Because you were just felt like you were spinning and spinning and spinning, and now you're right back where you were before.
I stood up to shut the fan off is what I did.
Oh, okay.
Did you guys do ads?
No, hit them.
Okay, shout out to our friends at Shady Rays. Take on the bright weather with gear built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized lenses, extremely strong and durable frames. Guys, they've got hundreds upon hundreds of combinations. You can shop their entire collection online or at the Park Meadows Mall. They have a crazy Black Friday sale going on right now. I think you still have through the 30th with them. So that is through Thursday. And make sure you check out Shady Rays at shadyrays.com. And then shout out to us at DNVR. We are also having a crazy Black Friday sale. I think today's the last day, right? Cyber Monday?
Yeah, Cyber Monday. Last time to get in on crazy deals.
Yeah, it's our best sale of the season. You get 90% off, up to 90% off. You can spend $75 and get a $15 gift card. All the cool stuff we got. There's even some crazy deals. I think you get a Nate Landman shirt for like $6. So check out dnvrlocker.com and make sure you get all your swag.
Jake, while you were gone, Jamaris Wilder decommitted from Colorado.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
Oh my God. Well, I saw Michael Welsh posted a CU picture during those few minutes. So
He did. He posted that. He posted home. I would say that was a reaffirmation of his commitment.
okay, well that's good to know at least. But I don't know, man. Jamaris Wilder, wasn't he the one?
I think he's
He came
teammates
with-
with Charles Lester.
Right. Yeah, and Zakarl Lewis.
Yeah. So make of that what you will.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's probably not the last one, honestly. So
No, it's not.
Just,
It is not the last one. Like I said, I told everyone it's going to happen. Decommitments, firings, and coaches leaving or whatever they're going to brand that is. That's going to happen first. Then transfers are going to start happening. Transfers out. Then you're going to see commitments. Then you're going to see transfers in. You're going to see them adding to the coaching staff. So just brace yourself for the bad news first. Although I think we are very close to some very, very good news that might be mixed in with the bad news over the next couple days, or the lesser news, whatever you want to call it.
All right, sweet. Sounds good. I mean, look, man, uh, there are going to be more decommitments, but I think that overall, Colorado is just a much more attractive place than it was this time last year. And I think they're just going to be able to get a higher quality type of player through the portal and through recruiting, too. So while these decommitments are happening, I genuinely think the roster is going to improve over this offseason.
The fan is done, is it not?
No, I think it's like
Do you hear it?
still no, it's still going.
It's that we can see it.
Oh, well, I don't. Do you want me to turn it all the way off?
Yeah, that's what that was the whole
Oh.
point. I
All right.
promise you, even without that fan, it is hotter where I am sitting than where you are sitting. It is.
I don't know, man.
It is a sweat box in Studio A today.
I am dying in here right now. I probably shouldn't have worn this hoodie.
Yeah, I know. I'd start stripping too if I didn't think that the comments would freak out.
Neely would like it, though.
From Eric Morse, Jake and RK, has Ryan Wingo rescheduled his visit to Colorado?
I haven't seen anything on Wingo, so I'd say no.
Okay.
But I guess you never know.
You never know. From two favorite uncles, Uncle Neely and who? I really would like to know the reason behind why the line was so much better this past weekend than past weeks. I think that it was just a lot more simplified. And we talked about them kind of simplifying the offense for Ryan Staub. And I think simplifying it for him required him to get the ball out really quickly. And it simplified things for the offensive line a little bit. I also, we talked about this all year. Running the ball helps offensive linemen. Look at the Denver Broncos, man. We were all talking about, oh, man, they wasted all this money on McGlinchey and Powers in the offseason. And, now the offensive line still sucks. Well, they started running the ball effectively, and now it's like, wow, this offensive line is cooking. Like, they're getting Baldy breakdowns every week about how they're just mauling defenses. Like, running the ball helps an offensive line tremendously. So I think that Coach Prime is very aware of that. And like I said, anyone who thinks that, they're just running, they're just passing the ball to pad Shedeur's stats, just go back and look at Jackson State. When they were able to successfully run the ball at Jackson State, they would prefer to do that. They ran the ball down people's throats all the time and won games that way. So they needed to run the ball better all season. And I think that we've talked about the fact that Shedeur became a crutch for the play callers. And it was just like, okay, well, you run it on 1st and 10 and you get stuffed. Well, you're not going to run it on 2nd and 10. You're going to throw the ball on 2nd and 10 because you have Shedeur Sanders and you think that he's going to be able to fix things for you. And I think it just became a bad habit. If you listen to Tony Romo calling Eagles Bills last night, he said they ran the ball on 1st down and got like 3 yards. And he was like, now you need to give Josh Allen 2 opportunities to convert this 1st down. You don't force Josh Allen to convert to just save you on 3rd down, on 3rd and 6 because you ran it on 1st and 2nd down. And I think that there was a lot of that happened this year with Colorado. But when you mix in the fact that they were not having success on those 1st down runs almost ever, it just became one of those things where they're like, all right, let's just drop back and pass it. It became a bad habit that spiraled out of control, I think. And I would be shocked if they don't get that fixed next year.
2 things come to my mind there. I mean, one, Jonah Ellis was out. That was Utah's best pass rusher, so they weren't really going up against Utah full strength. And then 2, we saw in the second half, I mean, he's kind of fed Travis Hunter at the end there.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think a lot of it was simplified. And I do think that, I mean, Staub played really well. I'm not trying to discredit the guy, but I think that there was a lot in place. There was a lot going on the other side of the football for Utah that also contributed to that as well.
Yep. Anyone who thinks this is about stat padding, you're out of your mind.
I've never gotten that all year, man.
Yep.
All right. Are you reading questions?
Yeah, H family, who would be your ideal OC if Sean Lewis leaves? There's a lot of good options out there. One name that I think we haven't talked about quite yet is Brennan Marion. who is at UNLV right now, came from Pitt. He was kind of, he made himself famous. He made his name being the offensive coordinator for Kenny Pickett, and just having that offense go absolutely nuts, especially back when they had Jordan Addison. Now he goes to UNLV, which it was kind of interesting. Like, Colorado was considering him before they hired Mike Sanford. It didn't work out. You kind of thought he was going to get like a really big job. Well, he ends up at UNLV and has them as the best offense in their conference. And now I think he might actually get a head coaching opportunity somewhere, because he's been so good and he's really had some quarterbacks looking fantastic. But if he doesn't, I would be highly interested in him as an option for offensive coordinator at Colorado.
I mean, everyone's going to throw up Byron Leftwich.
Yep.
Just look at the guys that get fired here. I think those are that's obviously going to be the most available coaches. But look at what Coach Prime did last offseason, pulling away Sean Lewis. Like, I think there could be a big fish out there that they just go all out for, and they get a complete surprise hire, someone who could hopefully, keep up with some of the stuff they've been doing air raid and like RPO wise, but also just get a little bit more pro style-ish. I know you're talking about that a little, but it doesn't need to be like under center, but like pro style blocking schemes. Just something to help out Shedeur and kind of ease his plate and take stuff off his plate so that he doesn't have to do everything.
Yep. Just for what it's worth, the stats on Brendan Marion's offense this year at UNLV, in terms of rankings in the Mountain West: number 1 in scoring, number 1 in the red zone, number 1 on third down, number 1 in wide receiver receiving yards, number 1 in QB pass efficiency and completion percentage. And then, for those of you who are saying run the damn ball, number 1 in the country in rushing touchdowns this year. Top 25 in points per game, 19 in total touchdowns in the nation, 5 in red zone scoring, 4 in third downs. And he has kind of his own offense. It's a new style offense called the go-go offense. Obviously fast, which we know Coach Prime likes when he brought in Sean Lewis. So we'll see. But I think he would be a really intriguing candidate if he doesn't end up becoming a Power 5 head coach or just a head coach somewhere.
I think Chip Kelly is also an interesting name. I mean, we'll see what happens at UCLA. He was kind of on the hot seat, but then beat USC. So who knows if they're going to make a change as they transition to the Big Ten. But Coach Prime talked a lot about his admiration for Chip Kelly and how highly he thinks of him, and just as an offensive mind and an overall football coach. So,
hell yeah. Who's your guess to transfer out? Players who can grad transfer and didn't play a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy right now. I don't think anyone really knows with the eligibility stuff. Anyone who I guess has only not transferred yet, so guys who have been on the CU roster, I don't know who that would be. I mean, you think about freshmen and stuff like that, but they're all guys that Coach Prime brought in last offseason, so who knows? There's going to be some surprises for sure. But in terms of specific names, I don't really know right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can figure it out pretty easily just by looking at eligibilities, knowing if guys grad transferred, watching who came out for senior day. All of that stuff is findable out there.
Yep.
Next one from Bernard. Buffs don't have anyone committed for 2025 anymore. Is that true?
Yep. If Jamaris is gone, that's it.
Yep.
Back
Next
to zero.
one from Corey Jewel Taylor. Could Shurmur be the best short-term fix for Shedeur, not necessarily having to go through a completely new system in his last year, considering Shedeur likes Shurmur? I certainly think that's the best case for Pat Shurmur. But the thing is, Pat Shurmur wasn't calling Pat Shurmur's offense at the end of the season. Pat Shurmur was calling Sean Lewis's offense. That's how it works. When you see an offensive coordinator get fired midseason or reassigned midseason, there's no time to make a whole new offense. Like, installing an offense takes an entire offseason. So what Pat Shurmur did was he worked with what he had. Now you can install a couple plays per week, which I'm sure he installed some of the stuff that he likes to do over the last few weeks of the season. But for the most part, he's calling Sean Lewis's offense, which he would not be doing if he were appointed as Colorado's offensive coordinator. He would put his offense in, which would be learning a new offense for Shedeur. But I do think the best case you can make for Pat Shurmur being the coordinator is that Shedeur likes him, respects him, and as Coach Prime said, communicates with him at a very high level.
I mean, I think we saw some of the stuff that Pat Shurmur tried to put in the offense. They went under center a lot more. They didn't really do that earlier in the season. They've run some two-back stuff. They did move the pocket a little bit. So I think if that's the route they want to go, I would expect more of that, a little bit more pro style. But I think you just got to keep this RPO kind of air raid style with Shedeur. That's just what he excels at.
Yep. Next one, next one is from Michael, who says, "What about Brett Bartoloni?"
I mean, could be a candidate. I don't know if Coach Prime's ready to go back to him. He was just his offensive coordinator 2 years ago at JSU. So I think he's a name that wouldn't surprise me, but I would expect them to look elsewhere and to try and go get a bigger name.
To me, it's either a big name or Pat Shurmur.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Bartoloni's a young guy.
Yeah, he is.
He'll get his shot.
And he did a great job with the wide receivers this year, for what it's worth.
Yeah, for sure.
Last one that we have so far from Harvey Malone, a super chat. Thank you so much. How come Scott Frost's name doesn't get mentioned? Look, Scott Frost, despite being the prodigal son of the devil, that is Nebraska football, has had a lot of success calling plays in college football as not a head coach. He also succeeded as a head coach for UCF. So he is a prolific offensive coordinator and a prolific offensive mind. I just don't know if you're getting Nebraska's favorite quarterback to come to Colorado. No, not that I think Coach Prime would care about that if he thinks he's the best hire. But it just seems unlikely. I would not. Let me just say that I would not be shocked if it happened. But I don't know. I haven't heard anything like that.
He called plays for Chip Kelly at Oregon, right?
He sure did. He did that, which got him the job at UCF, which then led to him becoming the coach at Nebraska. But Nebraska might just be cursed, and no one can have success there.
Yeah, I think that's more likely.
Their offensive numbers, their full season offensive numbers under Matt Rule, who people said was an offensive genius for a long time, are shockingly bad.
Didn't they play like 5 quarterbacks or something too?
It's all a disaster. Every bit of it is a disaster.
Yep. Can't wait to play him again.
Me either. All right, another super chat just came in from Miles Thompson, who says, "New DNVR fan this year. Just wanted to say thanks for keeping the faith this year and remaining consistent. Sko Buffs always, and hype for the portal." Thank you so much, Miles, for your support. And we're not going anywhere, so hang with us.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Miles. It's about to get very, very fun. I'm stoked for the offseason, honestly. I'm going to miss football games, but I'm stoked.
Yep. And to the people who constantly complain about us being too positive, go watch a different show. I don't know, or maybe you can't, and maybe you need us more than we need you.
Just be ready to when we say "we told you so" when all these moves come through.
Yeah, anyone who knows me knows I'm always going to be positive. So if that bothers you, go somewhere else.
Coach Prime's still the head coach here. Why would we be negative? Things could be so much worse.
They literally were 1 year ago today.
Yes. I don't know.
Perspective is important.
Let them know.
All right. Is that all we got?
Yeah, that's it.
Well, to those who hang with us, we love you. And we appreciate you. And
Love you guys.
All right, whatever. Love you guys. Let's go Buffs.
We all silly like the mayor.